sense. I have the experience and I have the record.
I was the most effective Democrat in the U.S. Senate. It matters if you can actually get things done.
I would be on the phone with China and making it clear, we are going to need to be in your country. I could get that done. No one up here has ever...
The 2020 Democrats pitching their records, promising to follow through to the American people. But isn't President Trump the one that is managing to get things done? Joining us now is RNC spokesperson Liz Harrington to weigh in on the current state of things in terms of the crop of candidates that we saw on the stage last night. Something I didn't have a chance to ask earlier, and I want to ask you, Liz, just to begin, your take overall on what we witnessed last night, because social media, people not being kind.
I think a lot of people were probably turning the channel. I think people are tired of angry Democrats, whether it's ripping up a beautiful State of the Union speech in the halls of Congress, or whether it's the display last night of angry Democrats yelling at each other over who was a shill for communist Cuba versus who was a shill for communist China. Who can kick, not if, but when, 200 million Americans off their private health care? Who can take over the most private industries? Who can spend trillions of dollars more in massive government interventions? I didn't hear any of these politicians who are interested in listening to anyone, let alone the American people who've been telling them 6 and 10, I'm better off than I was 3 years ago. Yeah. And it's because of President Trump.
And definitely not listening to each other, and definitely not listening to the moderators. But as we heard there in our opening, they're trying to say they're running on their experience, their record. They're the ones that can get things done. But isn't it President Trump that's actually been doing that? And as you discuss it, we can roll just some of his accomplishments, some of the promises that he's managed to keep.
Exactly. Where are the results? Where are these Democrats who are talking as if we're living in one of their socialist dystopias? I mean, they're not talking about the reality on the ground. They're pandering for votes in South Carolina, when in reality, you've seen President Trump usher in the best economy in generations, unemployment at historic lows, wages for the black community are up an average $2,400 per year. What Democrat on that stage can ever say they accomplished this much for the American people? But they're not interested in that. They're only interested in winning elections for the sake of their own power. They're not interested in winning for America like President Trump has every single day.
Yeah, the moderate candidates warning last night that Bernie is, in fact, the worst choice for winning when it comes to the ticket ultimately, and who can beat President Trump. Listen to this.
If you think the last 4 years has been chaotic, imagine spending the better part of 2020 with Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump.
I do not think that this is the best person to lead the ticket.
Anybody in this room imagine moderate Republicans going over and voting for him? And you have to do that. You can't.
You know, I mean, this is troublesome to me, and I would wonder if it would be troublesome to Democrats, what you were just saying, that they're really just bottom line interested in beating Trump and throwing him out of office. Even when it comes to, you know, you take a look at the total number of jobs added since the Trump inauguration. It's 6.5 or 55 million jobs that have been added.
And you look at that number, 2.2 million of those Americans were people out of working age who had left the labor force under Obama and Biden, who have now come back in because this American comeback, because we've unleashed the power of the American worker, not the almighty power of government that every single candidate on that stage believes in. If you notice that so-called debate, it's not about ideas. They have the same vision that Bernie Sanders has. They're just scared that they won't be able to win for the sake of their own power. And that is a dangerous ideology that they've brought into their party. Every single candidate, from Amy Klobuchar to Michael Bloomberg, has a plan for so-called free college, so-called free health care, the same very ideas that millions have fled from Cuba and Venezuela.
Yeah, but not a plan to pay for it. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to go through the numbers a little bit later. Thank you so much. It's great to have you with us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.